Hello and welcome to Scott's Odyssey. Today we traveled to a particular site from the late 1800s when iron was still a big important part of Pennsylvania, and well, we arrived where I am today and where I'm taking you, the Scotia Ruins. See you in a minute. Welcome back. If you've watched my videos before, I hope you enjoy this video and story about the Scotia Ruins. If you're new to Scott's Odyssey, welcome aboard, and please take a moment to click subscribe for more of this journey through odd to see stories of who we once were. It costs you nothing but a click, and will give you continuous adventures in return. I am currently up on the washer. It's pretty cool stuff. This is a part of the washer. The washer was a whole lot bigger than this. A little tricky getting up here. Everything's frozen. Everything else in this part of Pennsylvania has no snow, no ice. But this place is frozen. Over there we have a large ravine that comes down from the right. Another ravine comes down from the left. They puddle here where the washer would have expelled its water and goes down a tunnel area. We'll walk down that way. What we have here to the right is we got this big mound. And then on the left, we got another big mound. Both of them are part of the incline. There was an actual incline that would pull the ore trucks up and drop it, this one up another several feet, like 3 stories. Back here on the ground you can make out some concrete pillars. Those pillars go all the way back to a concrete stand there. That was the other end where the actual clean ore went down and got dropped into the actual rail cars. So let's get back down and do some exploring. Look at the rest of this thing. It's so pretty. Late 1800s. In the early 1800s, the lands between Huntingdon and Centre counties, from Spruce Creek to State College, known as the Pine Barrens of Centre County, were used solely as a source of lumber for the iron industry furnaces of the time. When the land became cleared by the 1850s, it was just referred to as the Barrens. Things we know about this area is that it is much sandier and full of clay than most of this part of Pennsylvania. The soil is considerably more acidic and is located between 2 mountain ranges that both push cool air into the valley. It has an interesting geological feature where the center of the valley pushes up to a flat plateau and has an underbrush consisting of impenetrable clumps of scrub oak, aspen, blueberry bushes, and tall grass gullies. The pines and aspen trees are very stunted in growth, the winter cold is significantly colder, and the land goes through periods of midsummer frosts. All in all, it's an undesirable location for farming and remains mostly vacant to this day. In the early 1800s, most of this land was owned by Moses Thompson. Thompson lumbered this land for the local furnaces and mined it for the iron ore deposits. In the late 1850s, the area was deforested and most of the furnaces shut down due to high transportation costs and obsolete production methods. In 1881, philanthropist and industrialist Andrew Carnegie, looking for iron ore reserves, purchased 500 acres of the Barrens from Moses Thompson in Centre County and named it Scotia after his country of birth, Scotland. Although the iron ore here was brown hematite, ranging in a purity of less than 45%, it was the best Carnegie could find at the time. Scotia was known as being one of the most happy and joyous towns in the area. There was always singing and celebrations going on between the work days. They even had their very own band, which was renowned throughout the entire region, the Forest City Cornet Band of Scotia, PA. The happiness more than the iron ore output of this town made it Carnegie's pride and joy. But it wasn't without its darker side. In 1894, John McMullen, the man who cleared the land and built the ore washer, was also a known addict to laudanum, a tincture made 10% opium or 1% morphine and 4% codeine. One day he decided to commit suicide by hanging himself from the roof of his cabin. Samuel Saxon, an ore washer, took a step backward on his platform to speak to a man on a platform above him. The man above him shifted, knocking a piece of debris toward Samuel. Samuel was surprised by the falling debris, lost his balance, and fell into the washer. Although Samuel initially survived going through the ore washer, he died in his home later that night. Due to a number of rampant forest fires, one that even destroyed the entire ore washer, and a decline in ore requirements from this alternate iron ore site, Carnegie's small and beloved town was ultimately sold in 1899 to the Bellefonte Furnace Company, which operated the mine until 1909 and closed the mine and furnace in December of 1910 due to economic distress in the iron and steel industry. Scotia went from being one of the happiest, fun-loving towns to quickly becoming a derelict and poor town with angry employees on a permanent furlough and owed back pay that they would never receive. One such employee was a man by the name of Bert Delage. Let me know in the comments below if you know of other locations like the Scotia Ruins. My research is limited only by the information that people don't share openly. Help me break through that barrier, and let's share the history and culture of who we once were. Scotia had a population of approximately 160 people at this time, 61 of them being African Americans, led by the beloved and esteemed Aaron Delage. Aaron's grandson, Bert Delage, was quite the opposite of his grandfather. Bert was a convicted murderer, rapist, and had a long history of petty crimes and holdups. Bert spent 3 years in Western Pennsylvania Penitentiary for the shooting death of his 13-year-old neighbor, Ralph Williams, claiming it was an accident. Bert had been locally known as a troublemaker with the Bodish family because he was constantly trying to get back pay that he was owed. One night, in a drunken stupor, Bert was standing by a fence in the field when Mrs. John Bodish happened by. Mrs. Bodish was the recent widow of John Bodish, Bert's former employer, whom was mysteriously killed in a freak accident just a couple of weeks before while working a merry-go-round in Williamsport. In a drunken rage, Bert grabbed the 51-year-old Mrs. Bodish by her head, threw her down to the ground. He then took out his razor and he cut her throat. His bloody razor was found by Mrs. Bodish's 2 children, who were crying and standing over the body of their mother. Bert confessed to the murder and ended up being the last man ever hanged in the Bellefonte jail yard on April 25, 1911. His body was interned in unhallowed ground outside of the Negro Cemetery near Marysville, another ghost town just a mile west of Scotia. And I decided to go from there, and I walked along the deer path and came over, and I saw some reflection over this way, and we got more stuff. I got a foundation base over here. Looks like tube sluicing, maybe. And come this way. And this foundation goes all the way around. This was another massive structure. I can't stop this crunchy crunch. So much ice and snow. Big tub basin of some sort. Looks like it has a platform in the middle. Oh, there's more over there. Let's see if we can't get to it safely. Is the other side of that basin. And we have, ooh, what are you? This is an interesting structure. That's definitely a pool. Someone broke up the ice. This would have definitely held a train rail, not just a ramp. And the foundation here is lifted and sealed. That's looking awfully wet. I'm not going to go into that. Well, maybe I will. Let's see. Alrighty. All right, I messed up with the camera. I broke through the first layer and it immediately turned into swamp underneath, very hardcore, so I'm not going to go any further into that. But here we go. Big ponding area. No spray paint over here. There is on this side. Someone did a nice big old skull. Essentially everywhere I walk, if I just get past a row of trees, there are more structures everywhere around here. Over there's the big graffitied pylon. The structures, they just continue on. Pretty much anywhere you go. This is a whole entire building foundation plateau. Here's a corner, goes on down that way. Over there, the straight line where it drops down real quick, that's a wall. And we're going over that way. Saw something. There's another wall over there, and we are now, we're at the beginning of the incline. Talked about the inclines in previous video where we did the Skew Arch Bridge, but they had inclines everywhere. And this one is one of the Scotia inclines, which had 4 rails, which means at any one time it had 2 cars going up on one side and 2 cars coming down on the other side of the ruins. Pretty cool. Here's the other structure that we just saw while we're walking back, which you don't see on your way in. So I guess it depends on which way you're facing. A lot of tie downs. Must have been a big metal tower or something really big that required cabling. I wonder if there's pylons on the other side of those. I don't know what they were for. Maybe running steam in big pipes. Who knows? But this definitely, it had a pipe in the middle. I guess this could have actually been, based on the way the pylons are set up with that big post in the middle, this could have been metal tower that went up and had a windmill and was doing water pumping from a well. We've been trying to figure out how they got water to this site because there's no standing water in this site, and they had a lot of it, a lot of water that they used for cleaning up the iron. That's so cool. It's probably safe to assume if we follow it, it'll go back to that spot that I recorded earlier. Because Leslie pointed it out, this is a grapevine around the tree. Let's give a size comparison. That's a grapevine. Big old wild grapevine. And he goes all the way up into the tree. He's been here for a long time. Long time. By 1923, Scotia was now another uninhabited ghost town of the Pennsylvania iron boom, with the exception of Mayor Wilson Gaynor, who lived there until his death in 1933. An attempt to reopen the mines took place during World War II and was immediately shut down when the quality of the iron ore was found to not meet purity standards. Since the time of the mines closing, numerous ghost stories have been told and retold of a black ghost seen on the Scotia Road and throughout the Scotia Barrens. It is said in the 80s a local hunter had seen an apparition that appeared in the evening of April 25th And this story has been retold by many other hunters. My only issue with this is the fact that during April, the only thing you could possibly be hunting legally in Pennsylvania is opossum, coyote, groundhog, skunks, or crows, which means the stories are probably made up and not even made up by hunters.